everyone, and welcome back to Magical Mystical Journeys. I am Katie Valentine, your resident Christian minister and New Testament scholar, and I'm, of course, joined here, as always, by the wonderful Amy and Andrea, and I'll let them, of course, introduce themselves. Amy, why don't you go first?
Yeah, hi, I'm Amy Renee. I'm a practitioner of shamanic arts.
And I'm Andrea St. Amand. I'm an evidential psychic medium.
Awesome. So the three of us are here to guide you on a journey. And as always, we'll have a lot of fun. We're going to answer some questions and talk about yet another ascended angelic being today. But before we get there, we want to talk about anything that may have happened in the past week. And last week we talked about Mother Mary. And so sometimes throughout the week, Mother Mary and then the guest for today will show up in interesting ways. So anything cool happen? What's your week's been like?
So I'm going to share because I totally feel like this is totally in alignment with Mother Mary and what we spoke of last week a little bit. And we spoke of, being a mother, sometimes our kids do things that like unexpected. Well, my son decided to break his foot. So he is having surgery today. And so just honoring that motherhood and just nurturing and also honoring the process of life and how it shows up for us. And I also had some other synchronicities, which are kind of interesting. I don't know how they completely tie into it just yet, but I'm just going to go with the flow. So tarot has shown up in my life like big time. And I've never like really been attracted or like felt the calling to learn how to read tarot or anything. I've had oracle cards show up in my life, and it felt simple. Dealing poker for 15 years of my life, it was like, oh, I was like in training to learn how to read spirit cards. And so now I'm just like, it's like, okay, spirit, apparently now it's time to jump on that tarot train and see what this is all about. So yeah.
That's interesting because tarot's come back into my life too recently. I used to read in college and then got away from cards and went straight psychic and mediumship, and it's just now come back as something fun. But Amy, that seems like a no-brainer to me. You with your numbers and I don't know.
Right, yeah, geometry.
Geometry, yeah.
Math. You're doing math like in every career.
Right. Well, for me this week, and it's interesting that we're doing Mother Mary and Michael like right back to back because that's how I experienced them before we did this podcast. That's how they came into my life. It was like, boom. So that's kind of cool. But honestly, once we decided to do Michael, it was like all of my attention this week was like, ooh, Michael. So I guess I gave away the punchline. We're doing Michael today.
Drum roll right now.
Yeah. But I did want to just follow up with something that Amy said about her son having foot surgery, because there's that moment of, you can't go back with him. You're having to trust him and let him go off into the surgical unit. And we talked on some of that about what that would have been like for Mother Mary, letting her son go away or letting her son go off into this new venture. And there's a place for that, even when you're not a mom with a child, of that trusting and letting go of your baby, whatever that baby is, Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I didn't have anything super specific. Just been kind of riding the train of all these beings that we've been present with. And so nothing like no dramatic anything or particular synchronicities, just like a nice presence all week for Mother Mary. And then I think it was yesterday, I started feeling the Michael presence, which is a big presence. And so sounds like we're ready to get into the show and talk about Michael and into the episode. All right. Well, as we are getting into the episode and we are talking about Michael today, we want to remind everyone that we do have an email address, and you can write us with any experiences that you're having because we would love to know about them. You may even get featured on the air if we can squeeze in a story or two. And questions, any questions that you have, we love questions. And so that email address is magicalmysticaljourneys@gmail.com. And we do have a few questions that have come in a variety of ways that we thought would be fun just to kick off this section with some general questions. So we have two for today. And the first one is on angel numbers. And so I love this. It's just angel numbers. What are your thoughts?
It never dawned on me to have numbers to me have specific meanings. But I never felt like a number associated with an angel. I have felt colors.
Okay.
But Amy, you like right away was like, oh yeah, there's this angel.
Yeah.
Like, what's that about?
Okay, so it's kind of cool because this is actually how my spiritual journey started. Like I became aware, like I was looking at the clock every so often, and every time I would look at the clock, it'd be like 111, 222, 333, 1234, just different ones. So in the beginning of the magical mystical journeys, as I'm just kind of gathering the information of what feels good to share about the connection with Archangel Sandalphon and Metatron. So with Santa, it feels important to also share that each of us might have a slightly different experience. So you might have different numbers that show up for you in connection with some of these beings. So what came through for Sandalphon for me was 333. And then Metatron, I actually had two that came through. So 1111 is one of them. And then 444 also showed up for me. And so as I was filling into exploring Michael, I remembered a time in my life that there was like just this deep emotion, and it was like this sadness that was present for me. And I was kind of crying. And then I walked through my kitchen, and on the kitchen stove, it said 111. And in that moment, it was just like this reminder of, I'm not alone. I have these like beings with me. And I just I kind of started laughing of like, oh, yeah, like, why am I taking life so seriously? And like, to me, that 111 really, I feel like it just gave me this strength and this peace. So to me, that brings up Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael is also known as 22 and 33. And there's also some other ones there too. So I'm curious about our listeners if they've had certain numbers that just really feel in connection with Archangel Michael too.
Or any beings.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely.
This is more general, just about numbers and angels. Yeah. I've never associated numbers with angels. What about you, Katie?
Not really. Angel numbers I've worked with as a very kind of modern, fun spiritual technology. So like ones as being, watch your thoughts or make sure they're in high vibration, and sevens, angels are cheering for you. But I totally agree with Amy. They're completely individual. So like I'll give those to my clients and people that I work with as a baseline. But I'm like, you gotta see if they actually work for you. But I've not associated them with particular angels. So that's fascinating. Cool. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
All right. So angel numbers. So the question was your thoughts. So those are our thoughts. Those are our thoughts. Go for it, listener. Have some fun with the angel numbers. Okay. So the second one is, do we have an angel that's assigned to us when we are born?
Well, I'll give my philosophy on this, which is just my philosophy. Of course, I don't have access to the ultimate truth, but it's my philosophy. I feel like yes and no. I feel like typical lawyer answer, right? Well, it depends. No, but I feel like there's some part of us before we incarnate that we're inviting. We pick our team. We pick and we might know right from the get-go, we're going to need this particular energy with us. And so I feel like to the extent they're assigned, it's not being assigned like, here's your first grade school teacher, here's your second grade school teacher. I feel like we're pulling them in, like we're the ones picking them. And then it seems like as we go on through life, certain beings may come into our awareness because we're ready to either access that part of ourselves or get help, use that being as a guide to get us to whatever we're needing help with, or to just really own that own part of our own soul. What do you all think though?
I agree 100% with you. So for me, what's come into my life and my awareness is I do feel like there's certain guides or angels that have been with me at certain points in my life. Maybe some of them there the entire time. And I also feel that at times it shifts. So, maybe there's a period in my life where I just have like a couple angels or beings like hanging out with me. And then there's other times that maybe I have like 12 of them. So it just kind of depends. How about you, Katie?
I'm sorry. Are those times, Amy, when you have 12 that you like are really needing a big team, or is that?
I feel it's those times when maybe I'm going through some deep stuff in my life, or building something big, or working with a lot of people, because when we're working with a lot of people, sometimes there's a lot of energies that we're working with. So yeah, who knows?
I love that. So I'm pretty much at the same philosophy. And so this is something that we know from experience, from anecdotes, from gifted people who can really, really deal in this particular realm. And I agree. I don't think we have just one. We have many. Like, the spirit is abundant, and so we're not limited to only one angel. Yeah, and I believe that this is we're probably all talking about this before we come into the earth. Who's gonna do what this time around? And so those angels are here for us. And I was just reminded of I prayed the guardian angel prayer in Catholic school growing up, and I hadn't read it in years, so I just Googled it to make sure I got the words correct. But guardian angel, or angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side to light and guard, rule and guide. Amen.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I must have prayed that hundreds of times, thousands of times.
That's so
growing
perfect for
up.
children too.
Yeah.
I mean, well, all of us, but Katie, maybe you're going to answer this, because we're just sort of generally answering this about angels. Is there a place that comes from in Christianity, that concept that we're assigned an angel, or is that more of a modern idea? I
might have to do a little research and get back on that. I think it might. I think there might be a verse in the so everyone get ready for your little mini historical lesson, in the part of the Bible that Catholics call the Deuterocanon. So it's part of the Catholic Bible. Protestants call it the Apocrypha. It's not part of the Protestant Bible, but that's where we see a lot about angels. And so they tend to be more important in the Catholic denomination and the Catholic tradition because of that, because they're drawing from the wisdom of those books, whereas Protestants don't. So I think there might be a little verse in there, but I did double check. Remind me, everyone remind me, and I will do some research because I'm curious. But there's no story or instruction, like God assigns an angel to you. So we get to have more fun than that, which is good. So
yay.
So I love those questions. And okay, so we've done some questions. Let's just start talking about Michael. And so Andrea is going to guide us in an opening invo meditations experience to bring in this energy.
Let's invoke Michael.
Yes.
Let's all just take a deep breath. But I actually feel like this suddenly I'm getting so excited. I don't feel like it's let him in. I feel like he's here, swooping in.
Acknowledging what is.
Yes. So acknowledge the powerful presence that is it just literally suddenly swooping in. So there he is. We've invoked him. If anybody feels like they need to just shake off the day, or shake off whatever you came into this with, now would be a great time. But yeah, let's go. It's like a lightning rod.
Cool. All right. I'm going to fire some questions to start us off and just get this ball rolling. Amy, what's up with 22 and 33 and Michael?
That's a good question. Just so I can't give a clear answer on that. That's just some of what's come into my awareness today. I don't know exactly why the 22 and 33 are associated with him. I know that my personal experience, the 111, it just is a reminder, the strength that came into my life at that moment in time. So that's kind of exploration. Sometimes we don't know, we just experience it.
Cool. So when you see 22s and 33s, that's your cue?
Yep.
Cool.
Or 111.
Oh, nice. You got 1s, 2s, and 3s. I like it.
So let me just ask something. Amy, so what do you do? What if you see a 22, do you just say oh, hello, Michael? Is it kind of just a hello, or is it putting your attention oh, maybe I need to think about something?
Right. So for me, a big part of my journey has been whenever I'd see those numbers, I just became mindful of what my thoughts were or my experience were in that moment. It felt like there might be a meaningful connection or just a reminder of, hey, we're here for you.
Cool. Nice. Well, Andrea, you mentioned colors earlier. Do you have a Michael color?
I do. There are two actually, and I dressed for him, for those of you who can see us today, or for those of you who can't, black and white. I see him as both. I see him as this tremendously large vision, and some people, put white wings on angels. And I've also always seen him in beautiful, like, the black of like the black swan, just gorgeous, big, huge black wings as well. So I feel like black and white.
Wow.
And I unknowingly dressed for Michael. Like I'm wearing black and white too, but that was was unconscious.
I also feel like blue, but it's a separate color of blue than Mother Mary. And to me, that's almost like truth, like that sword of truth. And Amy showed up in that exact shade of blue today.
I sure did. And it's funny. So I did have some synchronicities too around Michael. And as I was reflecting, so he showed up before our last, recording that we did. When we did Mother Mary, like the pink ray was there. And I was gifted this picture of Archangel Michael. And after we got disconnected, after we were complete with our last episode, I was like, why did Michael come through this time? Like, why Michael? Why is Michael part of this first episode? And what came through is the blue ray. So here's Mother Mary with a pink ray, and Michael's the blue ray. And there's a trifold flame that, they speak of that flame in our heart, right? So there's the blue, there's the pink, there's the golden. And for me, the pink is this love. And then for the blue, Michael, in relation with this, is this like this strength. I feel this like this sense of strength, like I'm just tall and I've got this and I can stand strong. And the golden is like this trust, this divine wisdom. And it's interesting because Jesus almost comes up for me in relation with that. So that's one of the synchronicities that Michael brought up for me of like, oh, this is connected to this.
I agree with you there. I feel like there's a connection there with Christ too. Yeah, it's right there. It's real close for me as well, between Mary, Michael, and then Jesus.
Well, and Michael is called a prince a lot in scripture as well. So that might be some of the connection. And it's like really important in the book of Revelation. So we'll talk about it in a little bit. But so it seems like we're all having experiences of Michael as being a really big presence. We experienced that at the very beginning of the kind of this conversation. And certainly for me, and just in preparation yesterday and today, and the preparation being mostly unconscious, like walking around my house and being like, oh yeah, that I need to check it out. There's that presence. But I was in yoga yesterday and it's all online right now. And it's like an hour and 15-minute long class. And after 30 minutes, I kind of got this, you've had enough now. And so I was like, well, this is beauty of doing yoga at home. I can just stop whenever I need to. And so I just stopped doing yoga and like went to my little chair to do some meditation and journaling. And I was like, this was kind of Michael guided. The whole thing, cool. And just allowing myself lots of time for integration and but a really big presence, not scary, but that kind of do this now. I have your best interest at heart. Just do this now.
That's been interesting because he's been a guide to me that way too. But I gotta say, I didn't know you were allowed to walk out of a yoga class, even if it's at home. Like, so, wow.
Permission. Grant yourself permission.
And then that's Michael's energy of saying, okay, it's time to do something else now.
Yeah.
Cutting that. Wow.
Well, and I put together a new desk earlier this week and I'm sitting at it now and it's glorious, y'all. It's totally glorious. I have this like L-shaped. I have all this room now. It's wonderful. And so there were little styrofoam stuff, like all the stuff that broke away that was all over the floor, but it's been there for 2 days. And about 30 minutes before we got on this to record, I was like, I've got to vacuum. And I didn't feel the impulse to vacuum yesterday, the day before. So I'm vacuuming and I thought, oh yeah, like I have this meditation where Michael's associated with a vacuum cleaner, like sucking up all of the stuff that you don't need anymore in your life. So I was like, oh yeah, that was Michael encouraging me to be domestic today. And so yeah, what are your experiences with Michael? What does that energy and that presence feel like so listeners can get ready?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, in connection with the trifold flame, there's this like just this strength, this like this knowing that I am safe, I am protected, and like I've got this. And yeah, that's what comes up for me.
You know, I have one big story with Michael that I'm actually going to save till a little bit later in
Ooh.
the episode. But for me, that word guardian, and he is considered to be that guardian, has been really strong. But he's also been a guide, but that strong guide. And Katie, you were mentioning that, and you're like, oh, I need to stop doing this now, turn my head and go do that. But he's been that for me, I think, in major 90-degree shifts in my life. Like, so it's really been like time to cut away the old and point your head in that other direction. And I feel like that's strong guide, but then also because of that guardian, that I feel like I'm okay going into that new realm. And then the other thing I feel very strongly with him, which shocked me, is we've talked a little bit about energy healing in here and learning Reiki. And Mother Mary came in for me during my first Reiki workshop. And then when I went in for what's called a Reiki level 2, Michael showed up. And I was like, well, why would Michael be in healing? That's Mother Mary's domain, as if, you know, there's only space for one.
You tried to limit him.
I did. I tried to limit myself. I tried to like protect Mother Mary. I'm like, you're stepping on her turf. What are you doing here, dude? Like, you're big and she's all healing and love, and I don't know what you're doing here. But for me, what it's ended up being is that she's the healer. She does bring in all that love that we talked about, but he's then the one that takes all the gunk away. He's the one that is like, hand me all that crap that you don't need anymore, that's no longer serving you. I can handle it. Dump it on me. I'm going to be your cleaning lady. Right?
Divine vacuum cleaner.
Divine vacuum cleaner. So now I envision, like, I have a place for him in my house. You know, I always place these beings around, and I'm in a loft-like setting right now. So we have a very high window, and he's kind of up there. And so I'll feel him just sucking everything up out of that window, which is so powerful.
That's cool. One of my early experiences consciously with Michael, I was getting energy work done. This must have been in like 2012, 2013, I want to say. And I have a wonderful, wonderful spiritual worker who also does massage therapy. And so she was working on my feet. And I mean, we weren't talking or anything. It was towards the end of the session. And I felt this intense energy on my right hip. I mean, like, like kind of crazy, like, just I don't know what it was, like something, but it was tingling, it was like doing all this stuff. And so after about a minute or two, I was like, I don't know what you just did, like, because she was not near my right hip at all. I was like, I don't know what you just did, but like something happened at my right hip, and whatever it is gone. And she laughed and she said, yeah, there was some like gunk there, and I couldn't get it to go away with her own through body work or through energy work. She was like, I asked Michael to come in with his sword and to clear that away for you, and he did. So that was the way you felt.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so that was pretty amazing. But you know, this is not a being that I work consciously with on a regular basis, like really at all. So I'm a little bit of the guinea pig today. Like, I've experienced the energy, but I don't do regular. I don't have regular conversations. Maybe I will.
I've had to with energy healing, because when I first started doing it, you know, I'm so empathic that I was taking on all the stuff. So I was thinking, oh, energy healing, we're going to just let, you know, whatever happened.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happening in readings. I was taking on all of my clients' stuff. So they felt great at the end, but you know, so somebody had to come in and like get rid of it. So I've had to start consciously setting that intention even before reading. Like, Michael's going to help release all the grief, any resentment, any anger, any confusion, like whatever it is that's ready to go. Because Andrea can't do that.
So empaths, be aware.
Use him.
This is a great tool.
Use him with reckless abandon.
Yeah.
He can take it. That's what he's there for.
So it's funny because you mentioned, Katie, the experience that you had with your hips, I think is what you said it was.
Right hip.
Well, so this week I did like a meditative thing, a meditation of, I want to experience a felt sense, Michael, you know, because that's something I haven't really done before. And Andrea, you had shared your experiences of what it feels like to you. And I felt it in my feet and my legs, very like almost like this armor was on my legs and my feet this time. And I'm putting, you know, connecting the dots right now. I'm like, you know what? This is the first episode that I haven't felt like shaky or like that scared energy. Like I feel good. within this. And then there's one more thing that came up for me too. Andrea, here you are talking about, working with him, he's cutting away the stuff. So as a shamanic practitioner, I do what's called a limpia with people. So I'm like clearing the energies. Well, sometimes I'm guided to use like a obsidian, like it's not a knife, but it is like would be like a sword or shape, something kind of on the sharper end. And sometimes I'm guided to work with that to clear the energies. And Michael gave me a strong, this is when I'm with you. This is when you're working with that tool, that is me with you, clearing that away. And that was just like, cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, and a lot of people use the image of the sword of Michael because he is a warrior. We see a lot of warrior imagery with him in scripture and throughout art. So if everyone just wants to go, like you can go to Wikipedia and type in Michael in art and a whole page comes up. We'll show you, but often with that sword. And so I'm curious if does that sword imagery resonate with you, Amy? Or knife or?
It does now, but before I really didn't. I mean, I've heard like cutting away, like cutting cords and stuff like that, but yeah, so absolutely it does now.
What about you, Andrea?
Yeah, I love that imagery. And for some reason, that's not scary energy. For some reason, because normally I don't like that warrior fighting or like, I want everybody to be peaceful and get along, no conflict. But for some reason, it's really comforting. And it makes me feel really safe and very powerful, very empowered. And I think that sword can be that sort of anything, that sort of saying no, that sort of truth, that sort of setting a boundary, and having help with that. It's also to me that conflict in our life is inevitable, right? And so I feel like if we could call in that energy to like speak in concise words, if we're going into a situation that might be difficult, that might have some conflict in there, that we can be that warrior, which doesn't necessarily mean fighting. It could just be that warrior of truth and wisdom.
Yeah, and those, whenever I do yoga, the warrior poses are not easy, but really powerful poses to do because they're cultivating that inner resilience, that inner strength. And so, yeah, I like that sort of imagery for that. And sometimes, like I said, I don't do a lot of visualizations with Michael, but anytime I do with the sword imagery for cord cutting though. So maybe I have been working with Michael and just didn't know it for years. Yeah. But it can be a literal sword that you envision, or sword of light, or sword of crystal, or it can be made out of whatever, works for you as well. And so cool.
Or you can put armor on your legs like Amy was given, and you could just like take off down the road. I love that.
I love it. Well, Michael is mentioned in the Bible quite a few times, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But interestingly, he's the only figure in this particular series that we're doing to kickstart Magical Mystical Journeys that's not corporeal. Like, we don't associate Michael with being incarnated like we did with Sandalphon and Metatron, and then Mary Magdalene, of course, Mother Mary, of course. And then we don't have a story about Michael being like a human at all. And so I'm kind of curious, does this make a difference in the way that we experience him? Do you experience this energy as being different than the incarnated energy that we've been exploring to date?
I think for me, and I didn't realize this till I was thinking about this for today, that I do always associate him with wings. And obviously angels may or may not have wings, they're beings, I don't know. But it helps us humans, I guess, get this concept that they can fly and do things humans can't do. But I've always associated him with wings, and he's always appeared like that. And I love it. I think they're huge, they're like larger than he is. And there's something that is something that's powerful and divine, otherworldly about that. But it's interesting, and maybe because I've had a relationship with him longer, I actually feel more of the subtle of all of the dynamics of him, more so than Sandalphon or Metatron, who might just be, maybe that's just like developing a relationship with any new friend. The longer you have, the more understanding you have as them as a being and how they're going to relate to you. I do think all of us have a tendency as part of the human condition to humanize these energies.
Right. Yeah. We anthropomorphize them. Yeah.
So we can understand it.
So, right.
So we can get our heads around them. I mean, yeah. What do you think?
for me, like with in relation with Michael, there's this grounded experience. So like all the other guides, beings that we've spoken about so far, like Archangel Michael is really one that we don't know that's been incarnated on earth. But yet he brought about this like grounded energy for me today. So I feel that that's a big part of it. And each of them we experience differently. And I think that's a big part of why he ties into this first series, this episode.
Yeah, and so like a peek behind the curtain as we were developing this. I mean, we developed it in it took longer than this, but when we were like, who should we have on the first series? That took about 90 seconds. Like the list was made, like we're all in agreement, you know, it's just very divine, right? And every week we're like, who should it be next week? Like 1, 2, it's like rock, paper, scissors, and we're all the same thing every time. But yeah, so Michael like made it in the list, and we had agreed early on, or felt early on, that this should be the to begin this kind of very earthy incarnated tone to it. Michael made the cut. And so I'm kind of curious just to keep on leaning into this energy and figuring out why, if it's for us to figure out.
He is so grounded. That's such a good word. He feels really grounded and very earthly.
Yeah.
He's not an airy fairy, let's say that.
And well, there's a cool story, not in the Bible, but in part of the stories around the Bible about Michael and the earth. And so maybe that'll answer some of those questions. We'll see. We'll see. Yes. But so Amy is going to tell us a little bit about her and her amazing work and how you can connect with her. You've heard all these tantalizing things about Amy Renee over the past few episodes with sacred geometry and shamanic practitioner and all sorts of cool things. So Amy, tell us how people can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can email me at communityasmedicine@gmail.com, or you can even visit communityasmedicine.com just to learn a little bit about my services. I definitely love to work more in a shamanic way. So bringing clarity to some of the confusion, like when these numbers show up, or if there's animals showing up, these guides that are showing up, the synchronicities, even the wisdom within the body. Like I help to guide people to receive that wisdom. And it's fun. So I would love to.
Community is or as
community as medicine.
Cool.
Because what we have found is that within this community, like that's where I found my soul family and my partner too. So this entity of community as medicine was kind of brought to life through him. And we've had shamanic paths, and that they've kind of come together. So that divine feminine and masculine working together.
Very cool. If you're not, everyone should go get on Amy's list like right away, because you'll be a better person. You'll be a better person as a result of her work. So become part of her circle.
Thank you.
Immediately. Cool. Well, is this a good time to talk a little bit about Michael and Bible and scripture? So this one is a little more complex, but a little shorter than some of our previous guests. And so Michael is mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and what did I say? He's mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and a whole bunch in those intertestamental books. So you might want to go back and revisit episodes 1 and 2, where I give a fuller explanation of all this other literature that's written at around the same time as many books in the Bible, but they happen not to be in the Bible. So by the time we get to the New Testament, we see that there's intra-community conversations that are going on, and assumptions. We see a lot of assumptions and presumptions that are made around beings like Michael. So we're going to actually start with the New Testament and work backwards today. So the Michael's mentioned just twice in the New Testament, really explicitly. And one of those is in the book of Jude. And I got to be honest, it had been years since I looked at the book of Jude. It's a tiny little one chapter at the end of towards the end of the New Testament that gets very little love. And it just doesn't get quoted a lot, but Michael is mentioned there. So you can read through this very bizarre little letter in about 5 minutes at the most. But this one verse, when the Archangel Michael contended with the devil and disputed about the body of Moses, he did not dare to bring a condemnation of slander against him, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." All right, so what in the world is going on here? We have this reference to Michael contending with the devil. We're going to see that come up again. So just hold tight on that one. But disputing about the body of Moses. What in the world is happening there? So there's a tradition. Again, we're entering into a conversation where the author of this letter figured that everyone knew what he was talking about. He didn't need to explain it. Right? We don't know what he's talking about. But if we kind of work backwards a little bit, there's a little verse in Deuteronomy after Moses has died that says he's buried before he gets to enter into the promised land, but no one knows where he's buried. And so there's this tradition that arises where Michael is the one who buried him. But we don't find that in scripture. We find that in these other books. And so you'll see these kind of references to Michael burying Moses. So when we were talking about the earth energy just a few minutes ago, I was like, oh, like there's one, like Michael being responsible for burying Moses. And Andrea looks puzzled. Go, Andrea looks doubtful.
No, I know it's making me think of being buried alive. Sorry.
No, definitely after he died. Definitely after he died.
But was there a belief that there was a waiting period? You know, he got buried before he entered into the promised land?
Oh, the promised land being Israel.
Oh, before he physically, like his body, before
after the 40 years in the desert. Yeah. Sorry, that was confusing. Yeah.
So he didn't get to be buried. Perhaps he would have wanted to be
right. Buried. Yeah. So a little tragic. He leads the people for all these years in the desert, and then he dies before
having to be buried on foreign soil.
On foreign soil, right?
That's tragic. Okay.
Right. Yeah, so there's this tradition with Michael burying him. But so we see this little reference in the New Testament, but they don't explain it because they don't need to, because everyone knew what he was talking about.
And that's because we don't know where Moses is buried. So people said, well, the archangel took care of him.
Yeah, and so what happens are these other stories and legends pop up in much later that answer those questions. And so Jewish literature in particular loves to do this. They'll take a little obscure, like writers would take a little obscure thing in the Bible that's not, or in the Torah especially, that's not very well explained. And then other stories are created to help explain it. And that's a process that's called midrash. So it's a story to help explain a story, and then another story to help explain that story. This is a beautiful way to enter into the mystery of the story. So this is not supposed to be literal. This is very rarely supposed to be literal. It's always supposed to be a rich tapestry. Rich tapestry. So I kind of picture it. I'm stealing this image from a colleague. So Joe Marshall, if you're listening to this, I'm taking this from you in your book. Thank you. But if we see all these figures as members of a constellation, then they're all making up a constellation that has a lot of depth and a lot of breadth. So the story about Michael burying Moses, I don't think it's supposed to be literal. It's supposed to be an answer to a question, an imaginative answer to a question about like, what happened to Moses? Why didn't he get into the promised land? Well, he does get to be buried by Michael. And then the only other place in the New Testament where Michael is mentioned is in the book of Revelation. So this is the big kahuna. We do not have time to deconstruct the whole book of Revelation. It's complex. A lot of listeners, you might be like, I do not want to talk about this book. I'm not going to make you. It's a big book. If you need more help with it, you can contact me. But Revelation 12 verses 7 through 9, and I'll just read it. Starting with verse 7. Yeah. The war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back. So that's noteworthy. The dragon also has angels. But they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And we see this kind of legend about this war in heaven, and Michael is leading the angels that are aligned with God, and there's all these other angels that are aligned with the dragon, who this text calls Satan or the devil. So this is, if you were in high school and read Milton's Paradise Lost, not a new story, right? This is told and retold. But we see that Michael is associated with this warrior. He has this real warrior role here and aligned with the forces of good, and they always vanquish the forces of evil. Like always, always, always. And we see that in First Enoch. That's a book that we've talked about quite a bit. And in all these other books, like there's too many to name. It's a very complex tapestry here. But then working backwards, we see that the book of Revelation is very informed by the Old Testament book, the book of Daniel. And the book of Daniel also describes this apocalyptic battle. And so Michael is mentioned there. And so this comes way before, not way before, but a little bit before the book of Revelation. All right. So in the book of Daniel, chapter 12, we see that Michael is called a prince. So it says, at that time, Michael, the great prince, the protector of your people, shall arise. So we see this real warrior protector image, and that's really consistent in the book of Daniel. There shall be a time of anguish, such as never occurred since nations first came into existence. But at that time, your people will be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. So we also see an association of Michael with this like book of life imagery, with this kind of holy records imagery as well. And so how Michael develops beyond that, I did not find a whole lot of information on, like what happens to him in the Middle Ages through the Renaissance and into today. So that'll have to be for another episode. But yeah, what are your thoughts and impressions on this quick tour de force of Michael the warrior in the New Testament and the Old Testament and a little bit in between?
For me, it's so interesting. So as you start sharing about, there's no room, and then that's, to me, it brings up that separation. And so here, both of you have this white and black thing going on, and that's kind of like where that separation was born. Where in my life now, I try to look at things of like, it's not good or bad, it just is. And so how to really hold it all and love it all, creating like this container for it to all belong. And so here at the end of what you just shared is like, oh, there's space for all of it. It's all life.
It'll all go in the book.
Yeah.
It'll all go in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, but it goes to me listening to, I felt like it was going beyond the warrior, the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like, wow, there's somebody up there fighting on our behalf to let go of that which doesn't serve us.
I love that interpretation because we can get really hung up on the, is this a futuristic prophecy or something like that, which is really not the right way to approach these books, right? These books are written, especially Daniel and the book of Revelation, are both written from a people who are eminently scared of the empire that is oppressing them. And so the image of Michael protecting them and defeating the forces of evil, it's not really Satan, it's Rome for the book of Revelation. I mean, that's what Satan is representing here. In my opinion, or Babylon, and represents Rome, but like Satan is kind of a minion, I guess, of that empire, or vice versa. But if we can look at it that way, these people are looking to Michael to be their ultimate protection against annihilation, right? And unfortunately, these two books in particular have come to represent not the person who's being oppressed, but the oppressor. And so sometimes we role reverse Michael, like we make him into something that he's not. He's not protecting the people in need. He becomes, he's sometimes misconstrued to be the force that then oppresses, which is, not what he wants, I don't think. He can hold all of these tensions, like Amy was saying.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, you alluded to a big story.
Yes. So I have a lot of crazy dreams. I have my whole life where I feel like I'm awake, like wide awake. Now, I'm not sleepwalking or walking around my house or anything, but I don't realize that I'm not awake until I kind of come back into my body and wake back up. But this is one that I remember with such clarity. I was 23, 24 years old. I remember what sheets were on the bed. Like that's how clear this experience was to me. And so in this so-called dream, which felt very real, I was in a desert and being escorted. And I knew right behind my shoulder was Michael. And he showed me a human man, but with these huge wings, and he was huge. And the whole time I was saying to him, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. And he was giving me this feeling by his presence that it was okay because he wouldn't be with me. I wouldn't be there, but he had given me permission and it was fine. And I'm going through this desert and I see across, there's like a cliff on the other side of a canyon, but it's like a big, huge wall. And I could see all the history of time. It was like a movie playing fast forward. And so it's interesting when you said the book of life, I didn't know that was associated with him, and record keeping. I literally saw everything. And I thought from this point forward, I can dial in and pick whatever I need to see and bring information out of it. what was fascinating, there was another figure there, who I was like hiding behind a rock, peeking around because I'm thinking, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not allowed to be seeing all this. And the other figure was Jesus Christ. And so when I came back awake, I felt like my soul was coming into my body like sideways. I mean, it was the most bizarre feeling. And I woke up from that moment. My takeaway then was that all of these beings are real, because I hadn't really believed. I thought, okay, this is how I was raised. These people are characters, they're fairy tale myths. It's all a mythology. It's like Santa Claus. Okay, great. It helps us understand a certain point of our human condition. But after I had that experience, I was like, okay, there's this stuff exists. This was real. These people are real. This angel is real because he was with me, shepherding me, and it was just profound. Fast forward 20 some years, maybe almost 20 years. And my first foray into psychic work, like professional psychic work, was through this concept called the Akashic Records. And to me, I just loved that idea of every soul has their own little book in their pocket, in their soul pocket. And in order to do a reading, I can go into this, in my brain, this great like hall of information and pick out their file. I can pick out the Amy file or the Katie file, get what they need to know right now, give it to you, close it, put it back in the library, and go home, go back home. But that's your reading. That's how I started doing readings. And that, as soon as that came into my awareness, that concept of the Akashic Records, I was immediately taken back to that dream of when I was in my 20s, of like, wow, I've got access to this information. I've already seen it all. I've already been there. And now I am allowed to be there. It was just profound. I know I probably sound like a Looney Tune, but it was life-changing. It felt real. It felt like I was astrally traveling. It felt like I was and that's why I think I was feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. I'm in a place that's out of space and time, and I need to go back to being human right now. I'm not allowed to be here. It's very real.
I love it that the
It's
dream
amazing.
continued to unfold over time, like
decades
yeah,
later.
that's
This
cool.
stuff doesn't happen fast,
Right?
always. And Michael didn't come back into my life then, because part of me was like, angel, what's that angel business? Like, okay, I believe the other stuff. What happened, I'm not sure, but he was there. And that makes me feel like, as I got older, then like, oh, as we started off this conversation, maybe there's an angel that's been there the whole time. Maybe it wasn't just this weird dream. Maybe it was a sign. It was a clear communication that this being has been with me the whole time. I'm just too busy being a silly girl.
About this is that, like, Michael didn't need you to acknowledge him. His ego was way not.
He didn't have an ego.
Affected by that, right? But like Andrea needed to.
Andrea
eventually,
needed to,
right?
Yes, and I needed to, and I felt, even though I was thinking I'm not supposed to be here, I felt like, well, clearly I am allowed to be here because Michael's the one bringing me.
Cool. So I work with dreams a lot, and like when someone, thank you for sharing the dream. So whenever someone shares a dream, it's like we all get to adopt a version of it. So I'm totally adopting a version of your dream. Have some fun with it if I have permission. Like,
run with it.
Yeah,
run with it.
Amy, what are you feeling? Yeah.
I love that you spoke into the Akashic Records, because something that's come into my life, and just take it or leave it. But so it is said that Metatron and Mother Mary are the overseers of the Akashic Records.
That makes sense.
I just think that's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story. Any other kind of stories, reflections, thoughts that we haven't covered that need to be shared? So we'll invite that sort of light, metal, crystal, whatever, to maybe draw a circle around us and all of the listeners as we shift into our meditation. So Andrea will lead us in this meditation. And just a reminder, please don't operate children or machinery or anything while we're doing this meditation. Wait until you're nice and safe and have a little spaciousness around you. So Andrea.
Yeah, so now is a good time to take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. So let's just, and we're going to go meet Michael for yourself. So Imagine yourself on a stroll or on a ride. You could be riding, and you're finding yourself in a very peaceful environment that perhaps could be a forest, it could be on the edge of a beach, perhaps you're on a cliff overlooking the sea, but something majestic, but also very peaceful and very safe. And as you look around, you realize you've been led to this place. You've been guided there, invited. And the Archangel Michael is your host. So ask him to present himself to you. And notice how you feel. What do you see? What do you hear? And feel that he is here for you. And he's specifically here to help you. So how can he help you just now? Is there any emotion arising in you that you're ready to let go of? Is there any worry, any grief, any heaviness, anything where you just feel stuck? Any anger, resentment that's just lingering around, that's no longer serving you? Any person in your life come to mind where your relationship with that person might just be stuck or in a pattern that you're ready to change? Ask Michael to remove all of that from your being. All the emotional and mental dust bunnies and what might appear to you as dirty water or pieces that are just ready to fall away. They've already served their purpose. Michael can take all of that. And ask Michael to give you clear, concise words of truth so that when you need them, when you're dealing with a difficult conversation or a difficult situation, his words of clear, concise truth can just come right through you. And ask him now to help guard you when you're feeling small, when you're feeling scared, when you're feeling weak or shaky, when you're feeling oppressed. Ask him to help. And feel right now how unwavering his presence is. And Michael wants you to know that his strength is always available to you. His assistance is always there. Be open to receive whatever it is that he would like to offer you today. And be open and ready when he offers to guide you in the future, perhaps pointing you in a new direction, away from the old. Allow him to lift from your shoulders, from your chest, everything that no longer serves you. I thank him now for his guidance, for his service to your human journey, for his unwavering presence. Michael is always there for you in that safe space. So come back now when you're ready. Back to your room or your couch or your car, wherever you are that you're listening to this. Take a few more deep breaths. There's no need to say goodbye. He's always there. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you. Okay, you two. Any comments?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and share. So I actually imagined myself on like a magic rug, like flying over the trees and just, so we spoke earlier about the like flying aspect. And so like I totally felt that. And then I came up whenever coming to that spot, that meeting spot, it was just this beautiful like beach, like almost like the circle, like a contain like a yeah, like a container and all this white sand around it. And my experience of Michael was just this like pillar of light, just this light. And then this like wings like going up, like and like a V shape of light as well with this pillar of light. And there was so much gratitude. I began just by giving gratitude. Thank you for like this grounded energy of like the strength that I really have embodied today. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you, because that's huge for me. And then all of a sudden I was reminded of, there's two things that took place today. All right. So right before us coming together, like my heart dropped, my entire being dropped, because I noticed that the dogs had made a mess in a certain spot. I was like, no, not right now. Like, and so there's like, okay, this like panic within us. Okay, I got this. We got this covered. And then of course, as we have been recording this episode, you may have heard the dogs barking. Well, my partner came home from work early, so they started barking. I was like, oh, here it is again, this energy of like, but then, so this like freeze, but then, okay, let go and just relax.
Talk about grounding. Your dog's
right.
going to make a mess, right?
Little incarnated beings that they are. Yeah, mine does too.
Amy, I just want to note, in case we haven't noted this before, because I know we have all the three of us have offline, but just for anyone listening, that we get nervous, you know. In terms of public speaking, that's been a big, huge thing for me to work through, and be able to just be in front of a camera, in front of people, and have words fall out of my mouth. And so that's a big deal for all of us. And Amy, it's so important that you're able to share that with your experience as well, and particularly today.
Thank you, Andrea.
Well, and speaking of dogs, during meditation, so the listeners, if these are your first encounters with meditations, you may encounter that you have like a couple of layers happening at once. And like the top layer, like you picture it like an ocean or a lake, the top layer where the waves are, that's your thoughts that just continue. Like you can't really control those. But then the meditation is happening at the deeper, like 5 feet underneath that, 10 feet underneath that, 20 feet underneath that. And so one of my top thoughts was viewers on YouTube can see my stuffed animal in the back and my newly arranged office. So this little blue thing. Oh, here it is. So something left over from one of my favorite childhood toys, animal, Foofer. His name is Foofer.
Oh.
And he's migrated with me over, 3.5 decades.
I love Foofer. He's so cute.
I was like, I have my stuffed dog from when I was 7 years old, and the camera view. That was one thought happening while I'm talking to Michael. So another dog.
I love that.
My meditations, guided visualizations, are often me viewing myself rather than seeing through my own eyes. And so that happened for the first little bit of this one. And then all of a sudden I was seeing through my own eyes, which is rare enough where I'm like it's fairly rare for me for that to happen. And so it was at some point in the meditation, Andrea, you made like a reference to Michael's presence maybe being unwavering.
Correct.
Was that the word that you used? Yeah. And that perfectly described kind of what I experienced. And it was as if we were sitting down almost like at a chessboard, but I don't play chess. But that kind of like we can do things to keep us steady.
Oh.
Like I know people that play chess, it helps keep them focused and steady and sharp, and you're patient and you're planning for the long term. And Michael was very big, like a very big presence. Black, like black male presence. And so this connection with justice, I was just, Black men are like under assault.
Yes.
Right now and in the United States. And I've been just worried about that. And it's been attentive to that justice issue. And so I think that was kind of this reminder that Michael can be present as part of this fight for justice. And then also like I have a couple of writing projects where I need help on. So I was like, we could cut away the cords that keep me from doing those. That would be great. And so,
Oh, you bring up
No.
something interesting. Most of us think we're going to
Yeah.
cut cords from an unhealthy relationship. And even that sounds dramatic, right? Or if something, you're just ready to move on. But I hadn't thought about cutting cords from energy that's holding you back from doing what
from
you're wanting to
creative
do.
self. Yeah, yeah. And it's more like I keep on doing all the little things that I feel like I have to get done before I just sit down and write. Whereas really those should come after.
Right.
Right. So,
Like, oh,
thank you,
the
Michael. Got it.
refrigerator needs to be cleaned out today. Let me like
Right,
pull it
yeah,
out
exactly.
and vacuum underneath it before I start writing.
Yeah. Yep.
Katie, can I ask you, just because I've never
Sure.
heard what you just said before about meditation, that you actually see yourself, like, are you above a little Katie? Is that what you're visual? Are you behind your head, or how are you seeing yourself?
More like it's on a screen.
Interesting.
It's not on a screen, more like it's a play,
That's fascinating.
like on a stage. And so it's very common for me to watch myself or watch a scene. And sometimes I'll even go back and forth in the middle of the meditation. But yeah, like when meditations, and I lead a lot of guided meditations, and usually people are seeing themselves through the first through their own eyes. So I sort of assume that when I'm guiding a meditation, but it's rare for me. So
one thing that creative visualization is so important with is, like, creative visualization is when we're starting to do something new, and you can visualize yourself, or if you have a project or a performance, because I can't remember if this has been said, but I used to be a professional dancer. And from the time I was 12, we were taught to imagine ourselves in the performance. So you're visualizing yourself doing all the steps, every little thing. Where is your shoulder, your elbow, every single little thing, over and over and over and over again. And that works with any project. So what we're doing now, you can take these visualizations, do them over and over again with Michael or Mary or whoever, because they're so profound. The more we do this, the more we do these visualizations.
Oh, absolutely. And I have in my one of my programs, I have a whole Metatron, like it's like a 30-minute experience kind of with Metatron. And many of my clients do that multiple times.
Love that.
Yeah. And they'll tell me that they go back and redo it. So absolutely, these angels are eternal. So, well, it feels like we're kind of we're never done with Michael, but it feels like we're kind of wrapping up for the episode. So we'll be grateful for any interactions and emails that we receive. And we would love it if you listeners would rate us on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. It really, really helps when there are comments. Clicking the star is great. If you can write a comment, it can just be a sentence or two. That would be fantastic. Just to help get the word out there. This is about these messages that these beings are bringing us, and about the radically cool experiences that you and everyone can have. So we want the word to get out there. So we would appreciate that very much. And until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.